The Packers lose to the Chicago Bears in embarrassing fashion. All three phases fail. The Packers limp into the playoffs on life support.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Kesha.
Welcome in another episode. Sounds good. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming back and taking a listen to us. Please know we do have new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Next to me is my best friend and co-host, Jordan Olson. Jordan, the Green Bay Packers confused everybody at home this last weekend and lose to the Chicago Bears 24-22. I had a simple question for you, Jordan. What were the Green Bay Packers trying to accomplish in this game?
That's a great question, Rob. And I'm not even sure that Matt LaFleur can tell you what the Packers were trying to accomplish in this game, according to the broadcast. And I got sick of hearing this over and over and over again, is that Matt LaFleur's desire for the week was to play a clean and mistake-free game. Well, we got the complete opposite of that. The game was tarnished and littered with mistakes at some point in time. All three phases of the game were failed: offense, defense, and special teams. Although I'm not going to be too critical of the defense. We're going to talk a whole lot about that sequence in the last 2 minutes that ultimately cost the game. But really, the Packers shouldn't have been in a position to lose the game on a field goal. They shouldn't have been in a position to win the game on a field goal. But I got a lot of questions. The Packers were clearly not focused coming into this one. You know, they started all their guys. This was supposed to be a game that was supposed to make them feel good going into the playoffs. I'd imagine the players feel a lot like us do as fans, and I can't imagine that you're feeling very good right now going into the playoffs. And then, I mean, it would have been one thing if we would have beat the Vikings the week before, and then you just call this like we kind of looked past the Bears and we were kind of looking at the playoffs. But 2 weeks in a row of really poor execution and poor performances has me really wondering how this upcoming game against the Eagles how that's gonna go. I don't know. How are you feeling? What do you think they were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I don't know. I was confused. It didn't seem like they were obviously well prepared, pretty sloppy in handling the football. Jaden Reed gets that one just punched out there, and then the special teams just mishap, pull a complete trick on them. So obviously they threw some things out there too that were the Packers weren't expecting. It didn't look clean. It didn't help. You only had Josh Jacobs in there, I think, for 6 snaps, and then we'll get in. I'm sure we'll talk about the injuries and stuff too. But the Watson injury just brutal. And then, he was forced to come in too because of, I believe Romeo Dobbs' illness. Mm-hmm. So he got flushed in there. And, obviously the training staff wouldn't have let him go out there if he wasn't ready. So just a quick, shout out that I hope number 9, and I think he will come back and be even better too, if that's with the Packers, if that's, with somebody else. So
we're going to talk about that. I got so many questions I want to ask you. So here's a big topic of discussion right now. And, we'll get into the semantics of this game, but what's your pulse check on Matt LaFleur right now? I mean, how much share of the blame do you place on him for this game, the last 2 weeks, our performance in the divisional games, or all of the big games that, quote unquote big games that we played in this season? How much of that do you put on Matt LaFleur?
I mean, there's a good chunk for sure. He is the head coach. He's in charge of the scheme, the play calling, the preparation, the details, and coaching does matter. The other half of that is the players got to go out there and execute. I totally understand that, but I just look at what the Lions did to the Vikings this last weekend inside their home with that defense. I mean, they saw something on film, if that was throughout the season or if that was just recently. They pressured the heck out of Darnold and made him look very, very stupid. So coaching matters.
And
go ahead.
The Lions don't have anybody left, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. For as much as we make excuses about our secondary being shuffled around, and if Evan Williams was in there and Jair unlocks everything, well, you know what? The Lions, that doesn't seem to slow them down. And, I'm not going to say that's not worth something, but I don't know. Next man up right now does not seem, and you know what? The defense was not the problem here, so let's not confuse anybody. Just like, what's your confidence in Matt LaFleur going forward? Will he prepare this team to upset the Philadelphia Eagles on the road in the playoffs this week?
I mean, I really want to believe so. I really do. But from what I've seen, at least the last couple of weeks and maybe some more throughout this year, it's just, when we've talked about it too as well, just flipping your identity too. And Jordan Love hasn't looked quite as accurate too as well. I totally understand that. Maybe that's more because they're just trying to pound the rock as much as they can, because like we've said, that is their bread and butter. So you can't really get into a rhythm and cadence. But I will be pleasantly surprised if that happens and if they make a run. It's gonna they're gonna have to be on their A game. They're going to have to come with preparation and details. He's not going to have to make any of those types of mistakes. They're going to have to firm up their identity. And you know what? On the other side of this too, I know that the Packers are a young team. I totally get that. They are the youngest in the league, right? So I believe that no matter what happens, you're going to learn a lot. But even remember from last year, riding into the playoffs 9-8, we felt static. Like it was a much different feeling than what we're feeling now, which is much more somber and lacking of confidence. So I want to believe that it's right and that he's going to ride the ship. I don't think Matt LaFleur is going to get fired by any means. Now, is there a little bit of fire and hotness to a seat if this stuff continues? Absolutely understand that, but hold the brakes on trying to fire this Matt LaFleur, freak out Packers fans, overreact type of stuff. I do not believe that. Now, if this starts to happen more consistently and you start to see this throughout and this rides into next year, okay, then there's a legitimate argument, right? Because you've seen the consistency of it. But, I mean, any Packer fan would be lying to themselves if they felt, good or better coming out of this game, riding into the playoffs. But we're still going to try and ride with the Packers. Believe, you never know. It's a brand new season. I just hope that they really, Jordan, if they come and they prepare and they play with their details and they play with an identity and they either go all gas, like you've been saying, right, and keep your foot on the pedal, or they end up being, conservative and take the 3 points and kick those field goals in those situations. Pick one. You're in this middle ground, and that's not where you want to be.
Yeah, and just to touch on a few things, because you were really well stated there. We're not really going to talk too much about the upcoming game against the Eagles on this pod. That's our episode that will come on Saturday. But for me, some of the blame's on Matt LaFleur, the details, the preparation, and the play calling to some extent. He's getting ultra predictable. I realized that he has talked ad nauseum about putting stuff on tape and building the play off of the play and off of the stuff that you have on tape. But these jet sweeps off of the orbit motion,
oh my gosh.
I mean, the fact that we're trying to stretch the field laterally 5 or 6 times a game. I mean, that Jaden Reed's going to get the ball handed to him like 3 or 4 times now. I mean, the Bears, the Vikings, people are prepared for it. And it was cool when it was like 1 or 2 times a game and there was actually an element of surprise there and it seemed like we were busting off a big run. But right now it's getting a little stale. And he's got some work to do. Hopefully he gets in his bag and comes up with some things that can push the ball down the field this week in the intermediate to short passing game like we talked about last week. It doesn't all have to come in one chunk, but we can't be going east to west all the time and then hand the ball off in 3 consecutive short yard situations on like the most basic zone running play either. So this upcoming game will tell me a lot, and I agree that Packers fans need to slow down. Well, one other thing I wanted to touch on is, the expectations this year are much different for the Packers. Last year we played with house money. This year there was some expectations that we would be this 11, 12, maybe 13 win team if things went well, and that we could contend for a Super Bowl. Most of that is still out there for us. It's just the fashion that how this has happened. We played really well for a 5 or 6 week stretch. We scored 30 points on offense. We were taking care of business. There's still time to right this. But next year and the year after, that is the window with this team. And people are only going to get more critical of Matt LaFleur, the players, the other coaches, everybody else involved. This loss was was tough in a lot of ways. It breaks a streak. The Packers hadn't lost to the Bears since, I think, January, December of 2018. 11 consecutive wins for the Packers. That streak is now broken. A crazier streak, the Bears haven't won a road game on a Sunday since 2021. So they've been winning home games. They've been winning a Thursday night game, but they haven't won a road game on a Sunday in over 2 seasons. So, we can't feel good about what we let the Bears accomplish. There's so much we could talk about, but I think we really have to talk about the sequence that happened in the last 2 minutes, right? So I'm just going to kind of run this down for us a little bit. And in my opinion, if any one of these things had changed, the outcome obviously would have been different, right? So DJ Moore, he fumbles the ball. The Packers get the ball on the 43-yard line with 1:49 left. We're feeling pretty good. Great punch out by Valentine. Buller recovers. We call a nice play on first down to pick up 6 yards on a little slant play. The clock's running. Everything's going smooth. Run it the next 2 downs. Don't necessarily disagree with that because we're already kind of in field goal position. But one thing to note is that running play on third down, we snapped the ball with 21 seconds left on the play clock. Why? If your objective is to run, you might be short. Why not use nearly all of that play clock? You would have been down to about 40 seconds of game clock left at snap at that point in time, right? That's the big gaffe number 1 right there. Okay, we get stopped short. We kick the field goal. Now there are 54 seconds left. We kick the ball. Engabari has a chance then to sack Williams on the next drive. Gets the terrible horse collar. So again, lack of discipline. I don't know why that was necessary. He was already 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He was going to have to make a pretty amazing throw to make anything happen there. So boneheaded mistakes. Then we have 1st and 10. He has a really nice pass to Roma Dunze down the sideline for 15 yards. Let him get out of bounds. We force the Bears to use a timeout after Williams runs. So then at this point in time, Dallas is beating the Commanders with 33 seconds left in that game. There's 2 minutes of Packers fandom here where we're I don't know how this is going to happen after everything is played out today.
The Bears are going to Bears.
The Bears are going to Bears. We're winning. The Cowboys are winning. We're going to get the 6th seed back. I can't believe that this is going to happen, right? But then, so then the Bears, they have the illegal shift. It pushes them back. And then we have the ultimate boneheaded play, right? The Packers come out with 3 safeties, 20 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, 10 yards beyond the line to gain, which I want to get your perspective. What are we thinking there? We allow Moore to catch that 20-yard in-breaker, which puts them at the 30-yard line. They get the ball with 2 seconds. Santos kicks the game winner. Game for the Bears, right?
And redeems himself from when they played in November.
Well, and we haven't even mentioned this yet. Redeems himself, but the Packers could be 0-6. They're 1-5 in divisional games this year, which is putrid.
Yeah.
We can come back to that, but I'm just absolutely sick over that. But I don't know. That sequence was a brutal encapsulation of everything that could go wrong for the Packers this season, right? And then Matt LaFleur comes on. He takes all the blame for this, whether it's his blame or not. Matt LaFleur, I know, has a reputation of kind of covering for his guys.
This falls squarely on me.
Uh-huh.
That's what he always says.
Yeah, which, I admire that leadership and not throwing anybody under the bus. But I would be curious to know, was it actually you, Matt LaFleur? Because you're taking a lot of heat that you don't deserve right now, if that's the case. And if it was, what the fuck are we thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that was the defensive call. Maybe they just made it oopsie, or maybe it was communicated in wrong. Obviously, they should have had somebody in the middle. They should have had a robber in the middle. They're playing massive outside leverage. Obviously, you don't want them to go outside and stop the clock. But yeah, for anybody who doesn't even know football, why the heck are they playing back so much? Because they had think they had the line, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist is my point to be able to see that. So how somebody didn't notice that is my point with preparation and details. Like every clock situation, every point, every possible play that could happen, whatever, boom, 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 throughout an NFL game, I would think would be like on his script, on his little, pager that he looks at and stuff, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's just getting pumped into his ears and he has other people. I don't know the cadence of how all that stuff works, pumps into him about what play calls and what percentages and that sort of stuff, but it's unexcusable. And, it could end up hurting the Packers in the playoffs. It's just funny for me to feel like you were saying worse for, 11-6 team this year. Right. I think that is because of those expectations and what it was from last year. I think that a lot of that has to do with your point of basically we should be 0-6 in the division, which really stinks. And I, would have been the first time that's happened in quite a while, at least getting the complete rundown from all the teams in the NFC North to beat us. I really hope something switches, but I will be very, very shocked. I'm still going to ride with the Packers because I believe, and I just hope that you just go out there and you just do it. Just play with aggression, play with an identity, and put your foot on the gas is what I'm trying to say. So
and don't let off.
Yeah, I'm not saying you got to be the Lions. The Lions are like, holy crap, they're that way, and they're barely ever. Anyway, you know who the Lions are though. Like
the Lions are in a Ferrari and they're going 120 down the highway, and they're running from the cops, and they're looking in the rearview mirror, and they're like, yeah, they're not gonna catch me.
When you're talking to your team and you're giving, coaching, whatever, you're having a weekly meeting with your team, does it help if you give them clarity and direction? Or if you're like, hey, we should go this way, and then, oh, wait, nope, let's try this way. And there's this option. It confuses people. People don't have clarifying expectation. It's the same thing with your football team, especially for the youngest football team. It's disappointing, and there's literally no excuse for it if you're a head football coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just a couple little tidbits on that before we close out that segment and maybe talk about some more positive stuff that happened in this game. I know we still maybe want to touch on Christian Watson, but, Matt LaFleur acknowledged he knew exactly the timestamp. So in that gaff play, that 3rd and 11 where we allowed that 20-yard reception, he acknowledged that he knew the timestamp to run out the clock without a team coming up and being able to spike it was 12 seconds. He definitively knew there was 15 seconds left on the clock at that point in time. He acknowledged that. So, and you still have a timeout. So again, I think that just goes back to like, you're the head coach, whether it's your responsibility or not. If you have those facts, you need to do something about it to change the outcome, right? So,
unless, hold on there real quick. Unless they really wanted to play the Philadelphia Eagles.
That would be a plot twist, right? I mean, I personally would have felt better about going against either the Bucks or the Rams, which we've talked earlier. We kind of secretly own the Rams a little bit. So, a couple positive things. Let's talk about the Watson injury quick. You've talked about it hurts, and then we'll end with some positive stuff and start to move forward with Philly. But really brutal. I really want to say that I'm really disappointed in Packers fans out there too, because people immediately get on the internet and they troll and they, say Watson's made of glass and all this stuff. And you know what? The man went out there. He's a human. He put his body on the line. He's been injured. And, none of these players deserve that kind of disrespect. If you're the kind of person that sits behind, a keyboard warrior that sits on the internet and says terrible things about other people, that if they score a touchdown that you're ecstatic for, get a freaking life. And, his dad got on X and he was pretty upset, and I think he had a right to be. So, be better than that, people. That's all I have to say. Christian Watson's brought us a lot of joy. It's not his fault. His anatomy maybe allows him to be hurt a little bit more frequently, and we have to live with that. But be respectful of another human. But what is his injury, in like a 30-second answer, what does his injury mean for next week's game? Is it his last snap as a Green Bay Packer? I know you kind of alluded that you don't think so. Like, what are your quick thoughts on that?
I do, unfortunately. And also to Christian Watson's dad, not that he'll ever listen to this, but don't go on X, man. After something, all you're going to find is just really, really dumb stuff, right? Like you were just alluding to. Yeah, I mean, it really, really hurts. Matt LaFleur kind of brought it up in the press conference, but there's not a lot of people that have that type of size and speed. And he was good. He was a good locker room, person too as well. He was a good kid. I have no doubt he'll bounce back. I do not think it'll be with the Packers. I don't think his story is done. I think he'll, learn from this. I hope that, if his anatomy and his body can keep up with him, I know that'll be with someone else. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to be able to do, quite a bit of stuff. So obviously thinking and praying for him and his family, and obviously hurts the Packers in a whole different type of way.
Yeah, and I think that one, it changes the way that next week's game is going to be able to be played. I think there's other ways for us to stretch the field. That's the immediate. I don't think it's his last snap, because now that, he's coming off a mediocre season. He's coming off a bunch of injuries. He's gonna miss all of next season. Maybe he'd be able to play, late week 17, week 18 playoffs. I don't think there's going to be enough on tape for somebody to give him a big contract. And if somebody's going to sign him to a 1-year prove-it deal, I'd be willing to bet that he likes the Packers, that he'd be willing to stay there and do that for whatever that cost is. Okay, here's a 1-year, $8 million deal. Stay healthy, blow up the stat sheet, get your contract. Like, I don't know. If that's what the kind of contract he's going to get and the importance that we're articulating on this team, I don't know why that wouldn't be with the Packers. So I believe that he will be back on a short deal to see if he's healthy and to see what he can accomplish from there. So what are some of, if you can find and glean any positives from this game, Rob, what are some of the things that you like to see, want to hang your hat on going into the Eagles game?
Keaton Oladapo. We called it on the last pod, why we weren't seeing that kid get some meaningful snaps, and he got some meaningful snaps, and I was eyeing him up for a good chunk, and it looked like he held his own.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it was obviously quote unquote a meaningless game, but still, do that up against an NFL team, even with one that we'll see or not if they'll end up being ascending here in the Bears and what Caleb Williams can do. I thought that was great. I loved it. That moved Javon Bullard, into the slot for that nickel position. I think that's where he excels. It put everybody back in kind of the quote unquote, good spots. They're natural. Well, natural is debatable, but they're positions where I feel like they've had, success and where their strengths are at. I will be interested to see if we do end up getting Evan Williams back, because Matt LaFleur said he has not been practicing. So obviously, that would help too as well. And then Quay Walker, I'm kind of liking what we're doing at inside linebacker so far, even though Quay Walker had a little bit of surge there. So we'll end up seeing as far as what that goes. Let's see, what other positives?
I thought, you mentioned Josh Jacobs earlier went out, but man, I thought Brooks and Wilson had a really nice day. And, the offensive line had a nice day running the ball. You look at the PFF grades, and most of our top 5 offensive players were linemen. Elton Jenkins was our top graded player, Rasheed Walker, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, everybody except Josh Myers. And then Josh Jacobs was our top 5 on offense. But, Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson both had some really nice runs. Emmanuel Wilson obviously scored. The running game looked good overall, and I think we were able to outgain the Bears 367 yards to only 224. Obviously, giving them the big special team score on the short field, ultimately really hurt us. The Packers were moving the ball. Failed to score in the red zone. Again, we were 1-3 in the red zone, another execution gaffe. But we got into the red zone. We were moving the ball. We were running the ball well. I cashed in on my Xavier McKinney prediction of getting his last, the 8th INT of the season. Kind of a cheap one, though, because he got Keenan Allen throwing the ball.
Yeah.
But I'll take it. It's a good way for him to put a stamp on the Pro Bowl season that he had. Other positives, I really like to see how much they're finally leaning in to Cooper and Valentine on defense. Those guys have been playing well. They've both played nearly 100% of the snaps on defense. Whether that's due to injury, I'd like to think that it's due to you're our guys now at this point in time, and you're playing well enough, and we're done messing around. So, yeah, get Quay Walker back in there and insert him next to Edrin Cooper, and let's see what that linebacking unit really looks like, right?
Yeah.
Let's see any other positives that I have. On defense, Edrin Cooper was our highest rated defensive player. I think they showed a stat that he leads the league in tackles for loss over the last 3 weeks on the broadcast. He's had 7. I think he might have had another one after they flashed that stat. Almost had a sack. I mean, we really found something in Edrin Cooper, and you got to like that. And then you did have a better graded game from Javon Bullard, as you alluded to. I think his spot is an overhang defender in the slot. We said that from early on in the season, and we'll stick with that. I think that works. So, I don't know. Not a lot of other super positive things to glean. I hope Jordan Love is healthy. We didn't even mention that. Early indications is that he'll be fine and he'll play, but that's something to monitor.
Yeah, and if not, we got a really good, capable backup in Malik Willis that can come in and shred some defenses.
We do, but man, that's not what we want to see. That's.
But he does a good job as a backup, man. He's a very good competent backup. So.
We're lucky to have him, but I will say that against the Eagles we stand little chance if we have to game plan and go in with Malik Willis instead of Jordan Love. Jordan Love can just obviously do different things for us. So to round the show out, the playoff picture, obviously the Lions won a great, they played a great game against the Vikings. Like we said, they're injured, but that's not stopping them. They get the 1 seed. They win the division. They get the bye. The Eagles finish number 2. We know we go on the road and we play them on Sunday at 4:30 Eastern time. The Buccaneers are going to play the Commanders. The Bucs ended up taking the 3 seed, and they'll play the Commanders, who are the 6 seed. And then the Rams are going to have their hands full with the Vikings. Going to be a big Rams fan next week and hope that they can knock the Vikings off. But that's what we got for you, folks. Hoping for a little bit better result in the playoffs this week. We'll have that Eagles preview coming out on Saturday. Thanks for listening. As always, share this with your friends, your family, and other Packers fans. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, make sure to follow us, like us or comment on YouTube. You can connect with us at Sounds Gouda or Olson Jordan X. But until next time, Packers Nation, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.